What is going on, diehards? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. Welcome to the UFC Vegas 69 breakdown for this week. We are coming off, pardon me. We are coming off another winning week. Not only are we coming off of a winning week, but we're coming off a full card sweep. Your boy called the entire thing top to bottom, 12-0-1 on the fight picks this week. Can you imagine? I can't believe it myself. I've always told you guys, I try to identify my spots. I want to pick my couple places where I feel comfortable putting my money, because I am not the picks guy. I am not the guy hitting at the 90% pick rate. I make too many cases for these gigantic underdogs, and we usually do a pretty good job of hitting one or two of those. It's kind of what we do, but never all of them on the same damn card. Holy crap. What a week. And then I went 3-0. I went on the Pub Hub with my guy Jimmy the Bag right here at Pub Sports Radio. We had the big Super Bowl Sunday show. Your boy went 3-0. 3-0 on the picks. Now, I did have that little sprinkle on Kadarius Toney for the Super Bowl MVP, and 150-1 if my guy just finishes returning that kickoff. We got a conversation, right? Like, bro scores a touchdown. If you were the first kick return in Super Bowl history for a touchdown, I might have been sitting on 150-1 ticket right there that could have been a winner. I had a hell of a weekend, folks. I hope you all had a great weekend as well. I hope nobody partied, too hard at their Super Bowl parties. Hard enough, just hard enough, but not too hard. How's everybody doing? Thank you all so much for jumping in here and hanging out with me on this Monday evening. We got MMA Propaholic, Uncle Weezy in the chat. We got SD Cruiser. The gang is starting to roll on in here. I do have to give a very special, very big shout out real quick, because we talked about how I absolutely destroyed this card. And yeah, MMA Punter is saying you should always have a few bucks on the full card. That's the stupid thing. I actually always do two. I do two full card parlays. I do one before I ever start any of my tape study. I make a full card parlay just right off the top of my head in case, my first impulse happens to be the correct one. And then I make another one later in the week after I've done all my analysis. I do all my breakdowns and I've kind of tightened up those picks. I do a second one. So I always have two full card parlays going. I didn't do it this week. And I have no idea why. I have no clue why. This week of all weeks, I was like, I'll save the $5. I don't even know why I made that choice, but I greatly regret it. I have to give a very special shout out though, because my guy, Ben Bracken on Twitter, he's a listener of the podcast. He's a follower, a longtime follower of me over on Twitter, and my guy did it. He parlayed the full card using the picks that I tweeted out right before the fights on Saturday. He turned a $5 bill into over $6,000. So massive shout out to my guy Ben, because he had himself a damn weekend, turning 5 into 6K off the show picks. So guys, if you couldn't tell, I'm having a good day. I'm very excited. I'm very happy. And it's been a long time since I've shared the screen with my man DFS by the numbers, one of the sharpest men in the game, half of the Propaholics show that you guys always seem to go to just a day before mine because they got to one-up me every time, those jerks. Brady, my guy, how you doing?
What's up, man? How you doing? My first live stream of the week. Me and Weezy did not go live last night because we did not want to compete with the Super Bowl. So my first show of the week on a Monday. I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm pretty excited about it, man. I was saying to you before we started the show, I didn't even think about that. Like, that's a great call to not go toe to toe with the freaking Super Bowl of all things. So, good call, and we'll be getting the reads going here. It's been a minute since you've been on the pod. How you been?
I know. I think the last time I was on the pod was when I was really confident in Corey McKenna against Elise Reed, and I had like
Oh.
2.5 units on her. I think that was the very last show. A moment I'll never forget.
That might have been it. And by the way, not to rub salt in the wound, but your boy's still batting 100% on Elise Reed
There you
fights.
go.
I that night was one of the nights where I said, you know what, Elise Reed is good enough to get in here and do the dang thing. And I called the submission last week, played the inside the distance prop, missed out on my own 14-1 call. Not happy about that, Brady. For all the good things I did last week, I'm a little upset at myself for not sprinkling the 14-1 because I talked about it all week. And then I played inside the distance at 3-1 instead.
Yeah, I was not expecting the sub. I was thinking TKO, not the sub.
Yeah, man. I frankly though, the reason I played inside the distance is because I realized the TKO was there, and the way Reed got busted up in that first round was spewing blood all over the octagon.
Hmm.
Like, I think I made the right move. Like, you know what I mean? I missed out
Yeah.
on the 14-1 casher, but at the same time, that fight very easily could have gotten stopped by strikes the way it was headed.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm proud of my girl Loma, man. I was very
Mm.
very high on her. I think it was my biggest bet of the night. So glad she came through.
Yeah, very happy for Loma. Good to see her get that big old finish. She's been definitely steering towards it a couple times. Hasn't quite been able to get there, so very happy to see her get that spotlight moment. Hey, shout out you Capper Sports saying first time catching the show live. What's up? Thank you very much for hanging out. Happy you could make it live. And Justin shouting out the Tahugov ugly robbery. And I got to tell you guys, Brady, I don't know if you guys did this. I didn't catch the show last week, unfortunately. Usually I do. I got to wait till after my show so I don't get my reads messed up by listening to you and Wheezy because I respect the hell out of both of you guys. But I tried to warn everybody. I was like, look, Tahugov should win this fight. He absolutely should win the fight. And maybe you can even say that decision was a bit of a robbery. But that's how Tahugov fights every damn time. So do not parlay Tahugov, especially at something like minus 600, because he's just not capable of paying off that price tag. I mean, ever.
Man, I scored at 30-27 for Tahugov, but yeah, you shouldn't be parlaying minus 600 for the dude. I mean, he's not a minus 600 fighter against anybody.
He goes to split just way too often.
Mm.
You can't do it with a guy like that, frankly. And I'm with you. Like I thought it was 29-28 for him at worst, potentially a 30-27, but the rounds are so damn close. He just
Yep.
never pulls away. That's just how the guy fights. All right. Nonstop Philly, my guy in the chat saying thoughts on the Islam cheating rumors. The only reason we can entertain a little bit at the start of the show tonight because it's kind of a shorter card. I think we'll blow through the show a little bit easy this evening. So, Brady, what are your thoughts on that whole thing? Dan Hooker comes out on Twitter and is saying that they paid off a nurse or something like that to hook him up with an IV, but didn't really offer anything in the way of proof. Like, what are your thoughts on the whole Islam cheating situation from the weekend?
Yeah, I briefly saw. I've been busy today, so I haven't been able to look into it. But are they talking about maybe investigating it or no?
Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything at all about potentially investigating whether or not they're looking into it. I would assume with the UFC fighter like that, making that kind of a claim, you'd think somebody somewhere would get their hands on it and take a shot at it. But nobody said anything yet. And frankly, man, all I can think of is you remember that time Paulo Costa, that video got leaked by his team. One of his coaches was like trying to blackmail him and was like filming him in the freaking hotel room with the IV. Like it was like hooked up on like the what was it? It was on like the TV hang, or it was like up on the curtains or some shit so the IV could drip for him. Like fighters do that kind of stuff all the time, man. We know that shit happens.
Yeah.
So I'd believe it, but you got to have some proof if you're throwing those kind of accusations out there.
Yeah, have to have some proof. But I'm curious to see if they do choose to look into it or not.
Agreed. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't, but it is it is Islam, and it is the Russian group there that seem to get the favorable breaks from time to time. So I doubt anything's going to come of it, unfortunately. Anyway, all right, folks, we will get the show on the rails at this point. If you could, this is Pub Sports Radio. Hit the like button for us. Let the algorithm know that you're having fun on the show this evening. These lines today are powered and brought to you by Superbook Sports. And let's get right on into the damn thing. First fight of the night. We've got Juancamilo, Ronderos taking on Clayton, Carpenter, and Brady. I mean, we're going to talk about it all night. And I'm sure every podcast that's out there is going to talk about it. This is an ugly, ugly, ugly card. It's starting off rough. It ends rough. There's not a whole lot here. Clayton Carpenter, I actually have a fun little tidbit here on Clayton Carpenter. This kid is 6-0. He's coming off the Dana White's Contender Series, 26 years old. And I know this kid. So he actually trained here in Phoenix at Power MMA and Fitness. Those of you who remember that name, Ryan Bader, CB Dalloway, like those guys opened up their own gym when they decided to split off from the Arizona Kickboxing Academy. They opened up Power MMA and Fitness. And I went and trained there for a number of years. Right after college, just started working. I had done some jujitsu and stuff like that there. I tried out Muay Thai there for a while. And that's when I actually got to grapple Bader. He actually gave me cauliflower ear. Different story. I've told that one before. But I remember walking around one day and there was this vicious little bastard and he was training with the pros. And I looked at that kid and I was like, fucking hell, that kid's going to be in the UFC one day. He had to be 13, 14 years old, had an 8-pack, and walked around like Conor McGregor. Like he was the hottest shit in the gym. And his dad was a complete asshole. Like you just knew he had been like built from the ground up to be a UFC fighter. And he was in every single class, every single day. I don't think he went to school. Like I don't know when he had time to go to school because he was always at the gym. And I was like, I'm going to watch that kid on TV, on pay-per-view one of these days. It was fucking Clayton Carpenter. Like, this is literally the kid. I actually saw him many a time walking around the gym, and here he is. Sure enough, he's training out of the MMA lab these days, and he's been training at the professional level for 10, 15 plus years now, since he was like 10 years freaking old. They took interest in him early, and he is a talent, man. This kid is lightning fast. He plods his way in. He's got good lateral movement. He cuts good angles. He likes his head kick, throws big, wild, looping punches. He honestly mixes his attacks up pretty well. Leg, body, head, like he doesn't get focused on one point too much. He's got a strong body lock. He's got a big, strong back. He's a good wrestler. Works his way up into mount. He sticks to people like glue once he gets on top. He's got good shoulder pressure, heavy in top position, and he's tough. In his Dana White Contender Series, that was like a fighter that looked like a weight class larger than him, and he was taking stiff shots from that guy and just kept on coming forward. I think he's very green. I think he still has a whole lot of holes in his game, but he definitely is a prospect that you want to kind of put a pin in and be like, we need to watch this kid going forward because he's tough and he knows what he's doing out there already. His opponent, Juancamilo Ronderos, 4-1 in the UFC. This guy's training out of Extreme Couture, made his UFC debut on 11 hours short notice. Missed weight coming in against Christian Dvorak, and he got choked out in round 1. So that didn't work well for him. He seems a little undersized for the weight class. Apparently, he was actually supposed to make a Dana White Contender Series appearance. However, they got the short notice call opportunity, and he took it, so he kind of leapfrogged the line there. But he popped for cocaine immediately after that fight, so he's been like off for a while. Man, this guy swings wild. He throws naked leg kicks. He drops his hands. He is very hittable. And he just kind of bulls his way into his opponents and forces them up against the fence. Really relentless forward pressure. And another one of these guys that you say tough, but I'm not really sure that tough is a compliment in that kind of a spot. But he does have a 9-fight amateur run. So he's got a little bit more experience than his 4-1 record would show. Cards on the table, folks. I mean, I'm not sticking to the angle the way I used to, but this is the Dana White Contender Series fade angle where you get the guy who's been in the UFC for one fight at least, who's a big underdog against the kid coming off the Contender Series, making their debut. And I'm not going to bet it because I am picking Clayton Carpenter, Brady. I do think this kid's got all the tools to win this fight and is deservedly a favorite. but I can't get around laying -$3 on him based on what I saw on the Contender Series. I could see this being a very wrestle, grapple, heavy, clinch fest, back and forth type of fight. I think it's Clayton Carpenter by decision, but I'm not paying $3 for him. What do you think of this fight? Did I miss anything? Any little nuggets you got for me in there, or what are you betting for the first fight of the night?
I think I missed something, Clint. Did you say Ronderos popped for cocaine? Is that what you said?
No, and just look at this. That guy. Look at that. He's high as fuck when they took this picture. Yes, that guy popped for cocaine.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I knew I had like a 1 year, 8-month layoff, but I forgot about the cocaine thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I like Carpenter as well, but just laying this price tag, I just can't quite get there. You know, these guys have pretty similar skill sets. I went and watched all of Ronderos' fights outside his UFC debut, and he kind of reminds me of like a really bad like Hoffa Garcia, where he's going out there, he's trying to take guys down, and he has success. He's a solid wrestler. It's just when the script is kind of flipped on him and guys try to take him down, he has no takedown defense. And I think that's going to be a big problem here. He has no takedown defense. He has no ground game. I think Carpenter should have no problem getting this fight down to the mat. I think Carpenter is the much better grappler. I think he's much more dangerous on the feet and on the mat. So yeah, I do like Carpenter, potentially even inside the distance, but this is a fight I'm staying away from, Clayton. And like you said, like this is a card where you got to be careful, man. I mean, a lot of these, like this is a card full of landmines. I'm really trying to pick my spots this week, and laying like -275, -300 on Clayton Carpenter just does not sound like the best idea in the world. So it's got to be Carpenter, but I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to lay 3 units to win one on this guy? I don't think so. So I'm passing on the first fight of the night.
And I mean, it's one of those ones, Brady, where last week I called it with Tuhugov. I said, do not parlay Tuhugov. I mean, you can probably get away with parlaying Clayton, probably, but at the same time, like it's not going to be me. I'm not the guy parlaying him. I do think he's going to be a very, I don't want to call it square, but you know what I mean? Like, I think he's going to fit into everybody's parlays this week. And I just think that sets up for tragedy. Just so you guys know, full disclosure, like I said, I get my odds from Superbook Sports. Clayton Carpenter, as of right this moment, obviously odds are subject to change. They fluctuate throughout the week. He's already down to a -300. So money has come in on Ronderos already in this spot here to start the week. So just be cautious. Be careful. I don't think I've got the balls to bet Ronderos. But at the same time, I'm not going to get my money anywhere near Clayton Carpenter. He's going to be the pick to win. That's where it stops for me.
Agreed.
All right. And folks, I'm telling you, the weekend I've had, I'm going to try and just ride the hot streak right here for a minute, because when they come, you got to kind of bottle lightning and go for it. So I've got some NHL degenerate action for you. Tail at your own risk, okay? Because I'm not by any means a professional. I call it degenerate action for a reason. Flames and Senators over 6.5. I've got the Red Wings and the Canucks going over 6.5 as well. I'm taking the Sabres, and I'm rocking with my Yotes. It's Coyotes time, baby. They're taking on the Predators, and even though they're 2-1 underdogs, they play the Predators ferociously tough. I'm going +1.5. That's right. If they lose by a goal, that means you win that bet. And I'm also going on the money line. So hopefully, if they lose by 1, you break even. If they win the game outright, you win both. That's kind of the plan. All right. That's what we're doing tonight. If you're rocking with me, good fucking luck. All right. Next fight we want to talk to you about, AJ Fletcher welcoming UFC newcomer Themba Gorimbo. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into here with Themba, Brady. I ran this guy's tape, and he's tall, and he's long, and he's lanky, and he threw a couple kicks right off the bat, and I thought, woo, we got a striker on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. And then he like sprints into a double leg. And I'm like, oh, so he seems like one of these guys. He's actually seems like he's got a wrestling base and a grappling base. He likes to get on top of people. He likes to have that heavy top position. He likes to set up in people's guards and elbow them to hell. Like, that's his whole game plan. And on the feet, he just swings wild. Folks, with these types of prospects where they're brand new to the UFC or something like that, you cannot just watch one fight, because I thought this kid's a clean striker on the feet. I thought we're going to have like this fancy ass Muay Thai striker, maybe a kickboxer who mixes in the wrestling well and just used that as a path to victory in one fight. No. He is sloppy as all get out on the feet. He dips his head straight down and swings for the fences with everything that he throws, loads up on big power shots, and really does everything he can to tie up his opponents, drag their legs, and get them to the floor. Now, he's also been in some spots where, like, I saw him get stuffed on a takedown and then just flopped over to his back. And he had nothing to offer from there, Brady. Absolutely zilch to offer from bottom down position. And that was against Ferreira, who's a PFL veteran. And that was just back in 2021. So a little bit concerning that this man is, I believe, let me pop this nice, sexy graphic back up here for you, 32 years of age. And he's making those kinds of mistakes before making his UFC debut. And Brady, I don't know if you stalk these people on Instagram like I do before the shows, but he's going hard about like being a UFC champion and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong. First off, confidence is key for these MMA fighters. And second, why would you be fighting if you didn't think you were the baddest man on the planet to begin with? Like, life beats these people down and eventually they accept gatekeeper status later in their lives. But when you first make it to the UFC, the goal is always to be champion. Always. And this guy's taking pictures holding the belt before making his UFC debut and shit like that. And I'm like, I admire the confidence, buddy. But from what I've seen on tape at 32 years old, usually you're a finished product around 32 years old. You're not making leaps and bounds of improvements at 32 years old. I'm a little bit concerned about this man. He's taken on AJ Fletcher, 9-2. He's on a 2-fight losing skid. And frankly, after his UFC debut, I thought we were going to just make piles of money on AJ Fletcher, Brady. I thought we were going to take AJ to the bank because he took on Matt Semmelsberger and was very competitive. And the way he started his fight against Ange Lusa, his striking was way better than I expected it to be. And he actually almost had Ange Lusa out of there in the second round, clipped him with some big, quick counter shots, and gassed himself out trying to get the finish. Could not quite get the stamp on Ange Lusa and ended up losing a decision there, but it was close to being over. I like AJ Fletcher's wrestling. He's a training partner for Dustin Poirier whenever he's in camp. He's out of Louisiana. Another guy that came to us from the Contender Series. I mean, personally, I like AJ Fletcher a lot. And I think if he continues to make improvements, that he's going to be a guy that should be well-rounded enough to win some UFC fights. And he could have already won one or two of them, frankly. His fight with Semmelsberger was very competitive. I like Fletcher here. I'm going to pick him to win. But again, I just don't really like the price. I mean, he's minus 250 now. Gorimbo is a plus 210 underdog at the moment. And he's big and he's long and he's lanky. And I'm like, man, somebody's got to know something I don't. Because like, why? I don't know. I don't even understand why Gorimbo is being signed at this point. And it almost seems like he's supposed to be the fighter they're bringing in to push. I'm very confused here, Brady. For me, it's favor to pass. Maybe a violence bet. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Clint, with everything you said. Like, I'm confused. I'm very confused with this signing of Gorimbo. Like you said, he's 32 years old, and it doesn't make much sense. The only thing I can make of it is I'm thinking maybe they're trying to get Fletcher back on track here. I mean, I think Fletcher, he's only 26 years old. I think he has a lot of upside. He came into the UFC, had a tough debut against Matt Semmelsberger. And then, like you said, he had a tough matchup against Ange Lusa, who I think Ange Lusa is extremely underrated. And then he had that really nice knockout win on the Contender Series. So I think they're going to try to get this guy back on track. And man, if AJ Fletcher does not beat this guy, I would be kind of surprised. Gorimbo has not fought the best competition. And yeah, he's going out there. He's getting takedowns against these lower level guys. But yeah, whenever guys try to take him down, I mean, a gust of wind takes this guy down. He had no takedown defense, no get-up game. I've seen him put into very bad spots on the mat, almost pounded out. And in one fight I saw, he's been knocked down. He's been submitted. I feel like on the feet, Fletcher can knock him out. And I feel like Fletcher can take this guy down with no problem whatsoever and finish him. I think it's early. I think it's in the first round. I think Fletcher gets him out of there very early here. So yeah, I'm already on the under. Was also looking at like Fletcher inside the distance as well. I really think this is a get right spot for Fletcher. I don't see him going 0-3 in the UFC here. And honestly, considering potentially parlaying Fletcher, the only thing that's kind of holding me back is I don't think he has the best cardio in the world, but I think he finishes Gorimbo and does it pretty early. Gorimbo's been finished in 2 of his 3 losses. Fletcher is a finisher. I think he's finished all but 1 of his wins. I like Fletcher in the very first round here, Clint.
Okay. I'm glad you're kind of, reinforcing the read there for me a little bit, Brady. I mean, I am oozing confidence at this point coming off the weekend that I had. My reads are sharp. I feel very zoned in right now. It's just these low level dudes. Like
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while, you get one of these guys that looks like garbage on tape. And then they make it to the UFC and suddenly they're a stud. And it's just like a matter of 6 months that's completely changed. And somebody somewhere, knew that. And that's why they signed them. And that's that weird kind of feeling that I get about Gorimbo. But like, man, the way he leaves his neck out there, Brady, I think AJ's going to guillotine him. He sticks his neck out so deep, and he's only been caught once. He got caught in 2015. That's the only submission loss on his record. But even just like his last 2-3 fights, his neck is getting grabbed by everybody. And if you keep tempting fate like that, somebody's going to snatch it. I really am going to have to kind of recalibrate. And if AJ loses to this guy, I think he's earned himself the moniker of bum at that point, because AJ should take Gorimbo out unless there's something, like I said, that maybe somebody's not telling us.
Unless there's like massive improvements, which from a 32-year-old, I don't really expect like these massive improvements in such a short times. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this matchup makes no sense to me other than I think they're trying to get Fletcher right here.
Okay. I like it. I will agree with you. And I am also going to pick AJ Fletcher. I am going to go with AJ Fletcher by submission myself. We'll see what those lines look like. We'll see if maybe what a violence bet looks like when those lines drop a little bit later in the week. All right, everybody, we got 97 live viewers. If you don't know my guy Brady, DFS by the numbers, part of the MMA engine. Make sure you check them out. Make sure you give him a follow, support him over there on Twitter and all the things those boys are doing. The other members of the MMA engine are part of the round table. We get them on here as guests pretty regularly. So you'll be seeing the likes of them pretty freaking soon. And you know what, Brady? Got to give a shout out to Monk. I feel like he's the one member of the engine that hasn't been on the show yet. So it's time. We're going to get Monk on the show sooner than later.
There we go.
All right. Next fight up, we are talking Nazim Sadykhov taking on Evan Elder, and this is a fight, okay? Like the first couple fights in the night already, we're like, I'm not too excited to talk about them. There's not a whole lot we need to know, favorite or pass. This is a damn good fight, and I'm just now noticing that the green and red is backwards on those price tags, folks. So apologies. The minus 170 obviously should be the red. Don't get confused. Evan Elder is the plus 150 underdog, even though the color swap is wrong, unfortunately. My bad. Both these guys are 7-1. Nazim is coming off the Dana White Contender Series, 28 years old, training out of Longo Weinman MMA, training partner with Matt the Steamroller Frivola. You've got Eric Elder, who made his UFC debut on short notice, up a weight class. Elder's got a big body kick, Brady. I like the way he always goes back to that body kick. He ends combinations with it. Sometimes he'll just launch it naked, and it's his regular attack that just eats away at the stamina of these fighters. If you just continuously beat up their ribs, it's a good strategy. I like to see it, and he goes to it over and over and over again. The thing I don't like, though, is Elder always backs himself up. He just kind of keeps on walking backwards, and then he explodes forward again in a straight line. You're never sure if it's the right hand down the pipe. You're not sure if it's the body kick, but he's always giving up ground, and it doesn't really set a very good view for the judges. And we've been seeing it a whole lot lately, Brady. Optics matter. Like if you're the one who's bleeding from a cut, you're probably going to lose that round. If it's a close round, you're losing because you're bleeding. Like if you're the one moving backwards and it's a close round, you're losing that round because you're the one who's giving up the ground. So it's not a strategy that I particularly like, and I think he's probably going to let some fights slip away from him because of it. But I do think he's got power. You know, he showed off some decent power, even though he was up a weight class for his debut. I expect better from him on a camp down at his natural weight class. He is a finisher down here at this weight class, but he also seems very, very hittable. Elder seems like a guy that just kind of props us up for violence bets. Like regardless of the opponent, he's a guy I think I want to bet violence on moving forward. He gives up his back a lot. He got caught in a very bad arm triangle position, and he put himself right back in that spot again at the beginning of round 2 for his UFC debut. So I think he's going to be finishable, and he's capable of finishing with his own output. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage, and he gave up 4 takedowns in that debut. Got to give him a little bit of credit because, like I said, up a weight class, bigger person than he's used to defending takedowns from. We'll see if his defense is really that bad in general or not. Now, Nazim, this guy, I mean, I'm going to keep it short and sweet on Nazim. He seems like a more durable version of Matt Frevola to me. Now, they train out of the same camp. They're training partners. So, like, it makes sense that their style is very, very similar. But he's got a good pull counter. He's got good, strong counter wrestling. And if you've got Frevola on your legs all day at the gym, of course, you're going to have a good get-up game. You're going to have good hips. And he just drops his head and throws hammers. This guy targets the liver, big body attacks, fast hands. Like, I like Nazim. I like Nazim a lot. In fact, I'm going to pick Nazim to go ahead and win this fight. I'm going to pick him to go ahead and do it by knockout. He's a minus 170 favorite over Evan Elder, but give me a 2.5, Brady. Like, if they give me a decent total on this one, I'm going under. I like Nazim to win the fight. What about you?
Yeah, I don't hate that undercall, man. I mean, these guys are gonna get after it, right? So yeah, and it's plus money. So yeah, so if you may or may not know, I do contender series content. Me and Lou did a show on MMA Engine, and I remember picking against Nazim on the contender series, and that had to have been probably my worst pick of the entire season. I mean, the guy went out there and just beat the dude up for 2.5 rounds, ultimately finishing him. Really impressed with him. Like you said, he's training with, guys like Aljamain Sterling over there. Really impressed with the guy. This is a weird fight for me, though. Like, you take a look at some of his fights outside the contender series, and he's getting taken down a lot. He's giving up bad positions a lot. I've seen him get his back taken a lot. And I want to say it's a good thing and a bad thing. Like, he's getting into these bad spots, but each and every time he's fighting out of them, which I like that. He's battling adversity and he's getting out of these bad spots. And then once he does get out of these bad spots, he starts to put it on his opponents, take over, and win the fight by decision or finish the fight. So yes, he's getting taken down. He's getting his back taken. I don't like that, but he's able to fight out of those spots. So that's good and that's bad, right? Evan Elder, I think he's going to make a much better account for himself this go around at his natural weight class, not on short notice. Pretty tough debut against Preston Parsons. He did show a lot of toughness in that fight. He fought out of multiple chokes, which was nice to see. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Sadykhov here. But I just can't get him getting his back taken that much out of my head. And I feel like Elder could potentially have success taking this fight down to the mat. But what I kind of noticed with Elder is he doesn't really wrestle as much as I'd like him to. And on the feet, I really do like Sadykhov. I think he has more tools on the feet. I think he's the better striker. And if he keeps making improvements, like he looked phenomenal on the contender series, if he can keep making these improvements, I think he's going to be a serious problem. So I like Sadykhov. I'm in love with the money line. Right now it's a pass, but I don't hate that undercall, and it's sitting at plus money right now.
Okay. Yeah, if it's sitting at minus 105 or plus 110, like those are the kinds of numbers that I'm looking for. I'm totally good with that number either way that you want to dice it. I like him here in this spot. I like the favorite. I like violence. And just the way he fights, I'm going to say knockout. I'm going to see Nazim by knockout. I know Elder puts himself in those bad spots. I know he gives up the submissions. And maybe I shouldn't do that, Brady. We're coming off of a week where everybody that should have won by knockout won by submission instead. Like, did you notice that? Yeah. Every single fight this past card, like, who on earth picked oh shoot, I'm blanking. What's his name? He submitted Randy Brown. Like Maddalena. Nobody in the world said Jack Della by sub. Like, that was not on the cards. So yeah, man, you could see another sneaky one where the striker should probably just ground and pound, but grabs a neck instead. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see that at all in this spot. But I'm going to go ahead and say that he gets the knockout because he likes to go to work with his fists. It just seems to be the way he approaches things on the tape. So I will say Nazim. I'll say Nazim by knockout. Probably an underlook for me.
Yeah, I think knockout's probably the way to go. Like Lou's saying in the chat, he still has PTSD from Elder not tapping to a 15-minute choke from Parsons, and that's true. He was in a couple deep chokes for like minutes. I can't believe he survived, man.
Yeah, and you don't want to mess with that type of submission defense, frankly. When guys don't tap like that, slight sidebar, Brady. My jiu-jitsu coach's jiu-jitsu coach taught a seminar at the school a couple years ago that I attended. This is the legendary Higan Machado. So for people that don't know, jiu-jitsu comes from two families. There's the Gracies and there's the Machados. And if you go back, like, everyone knows the Gracies because of the UFC. They know the Gracies from the UFC story. But the Machado brothers were actually also performing jiu-jitsu right around the same time. Shortly thereafter, obviously not as famous, but just as dangerous. And they have they've got just as big of schools and just as many, prolific students and things like that. Higan trains, I believe he's out in California, and he works with some big, big names. Anyway, my coach is a Machado black belt under Hegan, and he can actually let me roll with him. He let me put him in a rear naked choke, like sink the hooks in, body triangle, whatever you want to do. Go ahead, choke me. And it was like trying to squeeze a brick. It was like I had a cinder block between my arms. And he was like, go, like, no, just like stab my neck. Like take fingers, stab my neck. And I was like, it didn't move. Like, you know how if you poke your skin or something, it gives a little? All he did was like just a little bit of a flex, and it was like rock solid. Some of these guys can't be choked. Like you just can't cut the blood off. And that might be what we have on our hands here with Elder. So yeah, I'll say knockout. Let's go knockout. Yep. I'm not messing with that kind of a neck.
Yep.
All right. Everybody hit the like button. Next up, OSP. Back to Philipe Lins. We're back to bum fights, Brady. We're right back to bum fights. It lasted one shiny, entertaining fight that we wanted to talk about. It's right back to the status quo. OSP 26-16, taking on Philipe Lins, who is 15-5. Now, OSP actually used to be a pretty solid gatekeeper in the UFC, right? Like, he's just gotten old. He's 39 years old, knocking on the door of 40. We're watching him slow down every single fight. Dude used to be athletic. He's really big for the weight class, not out of place at heavyweight. He's got that stabbing front teep kick that he really put some work on Mauricio Shogun Rua with in that last fight. But he's slow. He's lumbering. You know, guys with fast hands give him a really tough time. KO lost to Hill. KO lost to Bozer. Had a bad round one against Oleg Zaechuk. And then Oleg Zaechuk, who is now no longer in the division, was a little too small to keep it up. Had Tyson Pedro had him all kinds of hurt. And then Tyson Pedro ended up on bottom in a second. And that was the end of that. But it was not an easy start for him against somebody like that. These guys that are quick, fast, athletic. He's having a hard time keeping up at 39 years old. But if he can control the distance, OSP is still got it as a striker from the outside. If he can maintain the range and the pace and use those kicks, chop at the legs, stab with that teep, and then explode in with one big shot now and again, he can measure his pace. He can make it 15 minutes doing that. Now, Lins, 37 years old, and another fighter that I have had, frankly, an exceptional read on. I'm 3-0 on Philipe Lins fights. This guy's a complete bum. And he gives the curly-headed fucks a bad name. So there's the guys in the UFC that have the curls, and their chins are legendary, right? Like the curly-headed fucks just can't. It's almost impossible to knock those guys out. Philipe Lins is the one that like dips it off a cliff. He's got 4 knockout losses. He does have very fast hands, but he's got very overrated power. Like he won the PFL $1 million, and that's what he's hanging his hat on. That's how he got to the UFC. He's not cutting it over here, man. He swings from the hip, leaves himself completely defenseless when he throws these big, wild swinging punches. And he actually relied on his wrestling against none other than Marcin Prachnio. Maybe the chinniest man in the division. And Philipe Lins had to rely on his wrestling against Marcin Prachnio. I mean, I bet on Lins as a plus 110 underdog that night. 2-unit shot, got the win for me, but he did it by decision, Brady. He was supposed to go in there and be the quicker man, land on the chin of the one guy who can't take his punch and knock him out. And he couldn't even get that done. I'm just floored by the ineptitude of Philipe Lins at this stage of his career. So it's a spot where I get it. Lins is younger. He's got faster hands. He's kind of the type of fighter that's always given OSP problems. But minus 220, are you kidding me? Folks, it was Zuby last week. Do not lay minus 220 on Philipe Lins this week. Do not parlay Philipe Lins this week. This man does not belong in the UFC. He never did, frankly. He's a complete bum. And this has got spoiler written all over it for OSP at plus 190. If Philipe Lins doesn't get this fight done in the first round, he's got one tank of gas, Brady. He's got 5 minutes of gas. And if he doesn't get it done then, he's going to settle right into that type of range where OSP can extend the fight and win a decision. Or frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if OSP lands a bigger shot than he does early and knocks this guy out because he does not have good defense and he does not have a good chin. It's dog or pass for me, but frankly, you should probably stay away from it and poke it with a stick until it's over. What are you doing here?
Yeah, so there's dog or pass, and then there's pass and jail. I think if you bet this fight, you need to be arrested. I think it's that bad, man. You have two guys. I mean, both of them, man. I mean, Philipe Lins, like you said, like on the PFL, he
I
looked
gotta
good.
update. I gotta update your picture, Brady. Your new hair. It's glorious. Like
Dude,
this photo does
I need a
not
haircut
do
so
your
bad.
gorgeous hair credit. I need to Photoshop a new picture. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
You
you're good. You're
go
good.
right ahead.
Whatever about my hair is probably better than this fight. But anyway, man, we have Philipe Lins, who he won the $1 million in the PFL. He looked good. He looked solid in the PFL. You know, I had some hope for this guy. And then he comes into the UFC and he looks like a trash can. I mean, going out there, I guess we can maybe forgive him for the Arlovsky fight because that's typically how Arlovsky fights go. He went in there and just did nothing. And then he gets knocked out, starched in the first 2 minutes and 41 seconds against Tanner Boser, a guy that's not starching anybody unless it's OSP. And then he beats Marcin Prachnio, a very, not the best win, to be honest, but at least he got a win. So Philipe Lins, I'm just not sold on the guy. You know, he cut down to light heavyweight for the first time in a while in his last fight. I thought he looked really good on the scale. I thought he looked in incredible shape, and I thought he performed better than he had in the last couple fights, but still. And then you have OSP on the flip side, who is 39 years old, and quite frankly, just does not look like he wants to be there. He does not look like he wants to fight in the cage. So it's just hard to bet on either guy. And it's especially hard to lay minus 220 on a guy here. And Philipe Lins is a really big favorite. I would caution anybody laying minus 220, minus 250 on Philipe Lins. I know OSP doesn't want to be in there. He doesn't want to fight. We see that. But laying minus 250 on Philipe Lins is just not the best decision in the world. I considered the under 2.5 rounds, but my concern is both these guys are so bad that maybe it just goes to decision. But both guys, terrible striking defense. I think Lins has like a 43, OSP like a 45. Both guys have power. I could see a knockout either way. So it'd be under, if anything, for me, but that would mean I'd have to put money on this fight. I'm not sure if I want to do that, but it would be a slight, ever so slight lean to the under. But you know what concerns me is OSP was not able to finish a 40-year-old Shogun in his last fight, and Lins was not able to finish Prachnio, who's one of the chiniest guys in the UFC. So that's my only thing holding me off from the under. But yeah, this fight's a mess. It's a 100 gambler fight, and if you bet this fight, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you probably have some problems, especially if you're laying minus 220 on Philipe Lins. You have some problems. I don't hate the dog shot on OSP. I don't think it's the worst look in the world, just because Philipe Lins should not be minus 220 against anybody.
No, Philipe Lins shouldn't have a job in the UFC, much less being minus 220 against anybody. And you brought up every valid point in the book there, Brady. I'm a complete degenerate. I might find my way to an under. I might find my way to OSP somehow, maybe OSP by knockout. But like, I probably shouldn't. I should keep that money square in my pocket and save it for a rainy day, because this is not a good fight. I can absolutely see Philipe Lins coming out, crashing the pocket, clipping OSP and putting him down and just pounding him out like 15 seconds into the fight. But frankly, if that doesn't happen, I'm not sure how he wins this, because OSP is more than capable of taking this guy down and grinding on him. And if Philipe Lins wants to do the wrestling grinding style to attempt to win this fight, yeah, we could see the old Von Preux pulled out again. OSP has a habit of getting on top of these guys. And when he's up there, it doesn't matter how gassed out he is. The dude's huge. He's a heavyweight. Like, you can't get OSP off you if he gets on top of you. So if he wants to go out there and cage clinch and wrestle and engage in the trip takedowns and go for double legs, which frankly, he's got low enough IQ that maybe he will. Like, if that's the game plan you want to go to against OSP, I think he's screwed. I think this could flip and be, minus 150 OSP live 2 minutes into the fight. So yeah, it's ugly, man. If OSP gets out of the first minute or two, I frankly just think he wins the fight.
Yeah, what a mess.
It's awful. It's bad. Okay. And you know what? The option this week is DFS.
Could be.
You got to make a lineup. You got to use some of these guys. Don't load up cash. Just throw a couple darts in DFS. I think that's what I'm going to do on this one. I'll have a lot of OSP.
I like it.
All right. Next fight up, we're talking Jamall Emmers taking on, is it Khusein Askhabov? And I think it's Khusein. I think I think it's pronounced with an SH. I don't know. I got to work on that. I apologize. Askhabov is your minus 140 favorite, taking on Jamall Emmers, who is plus 120. And I have an oath to keep, Brady. I come before you all today as a man who has sworn never to ever lose money on Jamall Emmers ever again. I refuse to do it. We try not to bet on fighters, number one, who have bad chins. We try not to bet on fighters, number two, who have bad cardio because they're untrustworthy. And the third and final piece of the puzzle is they get tossed in the bad IQ trash bin. And if you burn me and you get thrown in the bad IQ trash bin, you've got a lot of damn work to do to claw your way back into my good graces. Jamall Emmers has all the physical tools you could ever want for a UFC fighter. He has one of the worst fight IQs I have ever seen. This man is 18-6. He's training at Uriah's Ultimate Fitness. And I had piles of Jamall Emmers when he fought Sabatini. And this guy's got gloves that fit heavyweights because he's got some of the biggest mitts you'll see in this weight class. And he is a wrestler turned striker, tall and lanky with fast hands, and he throws nukes, Brady. He's so fast. He had Sabatini dead to rights in that fight and then immediately dove down to the ground and started playing ankle locks with him. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. I mean, I know you're excited to get a highlight reel KO. I know you want that 50K, but when you've got a man dead like that, I mean, strike, if you want to get on top of him and pound, okay, but why are you engaging in the grappling when they are that hurt that early? Like, it blew my mind that he sold that fight down the river on me. And now it almost seems like the UFC is also intending to maybe sell on him a little bit because this Askhabov kid is incredible. 23-0, making his UFC debut, training at Tiger Muay Thai, which we all know is just one of the best gyms around. Has not fought since 2020. Now, the reason for that is he was fighting under a Ukrainian promotion and couldn't get a visa to get over here to the States. We all know all the crap that's going on in Ukraine. Obviously, that's been a problem. The promotion he was working with apparently went under, and he was supposed to make an appearance on Dana White Contender Series. That fell through because he couldn't get here. And then they were like, screw it, we'll just throw him in there against Anderson Brito. He had to pull out of that one because he couldn't get here. They paired him up with Herbert Burns. Like, it seems like they're doing everything they can to get this 23-0 prospect a good win in the UFC. They're giving him these dangerous guys that have holes in their games that maybe he can go ahead and get a one-up on and make a big splash when he gets here. He just can't freaking get here. So now they're throwing him in here against Jamall Emmers. He has long limbs, and he's got a big head kick, and he goes to it a lot, Brady. I know you ran the tape, and he comes out and he'll throw like 3 head kicks in a row. Constant forward pressure, loads up and explodes. He does throw the spinning heel kick, maybe a little more than I would like, but he's more than willing to grind, and he also is one of these freaks that is so athletic that he has no problem putting himself in a bad position. Now, that's questionable IQ for us gamblers, right? Like, if you're willing to put yourself in a bad spot because you know you can get out of it, I don't really want to risk my money on you. But at the same time, at the lower level, it works. You know, I would assume he'll patch those holes up here at the higher level. But he gets underneath people and has no problem getting himself right back up to the feet where he's comfortable. He works the body of his opponents, which y'all know I like. One of my favorite things in the world is when these strikers roast the bodies of their opponents. I can't help it, Brady. It almost seems to me like the UFC is ready to sell on Jamall Emmers too. He's been a bit of a disappointment as a prospect, and it seems like they're bringing in this 23-0 kid to get a big win over a notable name. It's sink or swim time for Emmers. This is another spot where I hate trusting debutantes, but it's favored or pass for me. Like, I'm going to either be on Askhabov or I'm not betting this fight.
Yeah, I don't blame you for passing on this fight. Man, I like Emmers quite a bit. Like you said, he has all the physical tools. The dude's 5'10" at featherweight. He's going to have a size advantage in this matchup. Askhabov, not only is he coming up a weight class here to featherweight, he's taken that 3-year layoff as well. He had not fought at featherweight since like 2016. He's been fighting at bantamweight recently, so he's going to be coming up a weight class. I think he's going to be undersized in this matchup. But yeah, Emmers, he's going to have the size here. He has the striking. He has the high school wrestling background, the college wrestling background. He has the jiu-jitsu, but he's lacking one thing, Clint. Like you said, it's the fight IQ, you know? But man, this dude, Askhabov, I don't know. I'm just not completely sold on the guy. He's 23-0, and that's That's a phenomenal record. I think maybe my expectations were really high going to the tape, but I just wasn't too impressed with the guy. I think the guy's really sloppy on the feet. I think he's sloppy with the takedowns, and he's taking these guys down. But after you dig into the level of competition a little bit, I mean, it just gives me some serious pause. Like, he's 23-0, but this is some of the worst competition I've ever seen. And I go back to like a while ago, and I'm fully convinced some of these guys he's fighting are just not even real people. Like, on Tapology, they don't even have Tapology pages. They don't even have records. Like, Clint, is Wemba and Zuzi a real guy? Is Maxime Cousin a real person? Like, I'm not even convinced he's fighting real guys. I'm getting like Askar, like Mozara vibes here, and like
Mosfradiev vibes.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out this guy's best win, and it's like, is it 7-0 RB Mozarov, who
probably is
now 7-1? And you take a look at that Mozarov guy, he was beating guys that are 0-0, 0-0, 0-1, 0-0, not available, 0-3, 0-4. Is his best win Edison Teixeira, who's 25 and like 15, 29 and 15? Is it Benjamin Brader? Is it Duan Van Helfort? Like, I can't find a good win. Like, if you put Jamall Emmers against these 23 guys, Jamall Emmers goes 23-0. So I think he has an exciting skill set. True. I think he's a solid fighter, but I'm just not completely sold yet. The reason I can't be too confident in Emmers, because like you said, he makes so many mistakes. He has all the skill in the world. He has the striking, he has the grappling, he has the wrestling, he has the cardio, he has the power, the finishing ability. He makes bad mistakes. He doesn't have good fight IQ. And on top of that, the other reason I can't be too confident in Emmers here is the fact that this dude, Askhabov, is taking a 3-year layoff, and that scares me a little bit. He's training at a good gym. And a 3-year layoff for a 25-year-old, I think he's going to come back looking a lot better. So that scares me as well. But if he has not...
I could make my UFC debut after 3 years at Tiger Muay Thai.
Oh, most people could. I mean, that gym is crazy, dude. So that scares me a little bit too. But like I said, I'm not completely sold on the guy yet. So I did take the dog shot on Emmers. I got him at plus 130. Believe it or not, Emmers opened up at like plus 200. And he's all the way to plus 102 with money still coming in on him. I got him at plus 130. I'm taking the dog shot. I didn't go heavy on it because, like, the fight IQ, the potential improvements of Askhabov. But this Askhabov guy, he has to prove it to me. If he beats Jamall Emmers, it's going to be the best win by a mile. Jamall Emmers is not Yusuf Hadi Vizengayev. He is not Yusuf Hadi Vizengayev, who is now 3-1, hasn't fought since. Like, that's Askhabov's last win. Yusuf Hadi Vizengayev. I don't know, Clint. We'll have to see, but I'm on Jamall Emmers this week. It may bite me, but I'm gonna take a shot on him here. So give me a Jamall Emmers. I don't know how he gets it done. Maybe a decision, maybe a knockout, maybe a sub. But I'm picking him to get the slight upset here. We'll see if it works out.
Oh, I mean, you're talking too much sense to me, Brady. You really are. But I swear it'll never happen. I'm not betting on Jamall Emmers.
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you, dude. His fight IQ, it's bad.
It's so bad. And it's one of those things where after a couple UFC level fights, training at the gym he's at, I would have expected it to improve, and it's not. So that's kind of my big frustration. The big thing for me is that 3-year layoff. We just don't know shit about this guy. After 3 years, like, yeah, he's a little wild. Yeah, he's a little crazy. But you know who else goes to Tiger Muay Thai? We saw the improvements from Loma. You've seen Petr Yan. Like, if he's working with any of those bodies out there, like, he's still getting UFC caliber rounds, and we could see a much improved version of this kid, and he's freakishly athletic. So, yeah, man, I'm not touching this fight. I can't. It would be another spot where I would be tempted to maybe look violence just because of the way these guys fight. But honestly, guys, there's better opportunities. Like, you're better off playing, I don't know, pachinko or something. You don't need to bet this fight.
Yeah, you don't need to bet any fight on this card, to be honest. But we will. We're degenerates, Clint.
We will.
Yes.
That's right. We are the degenerates. And I got to shout out our guy, Rob, in the chat saying Brady's a perfect Wolverine Marvel character audition. Not even kidding. I agree. No. It's all about the hair. Like, you could just do a little gel and just flip it up. Yes, I'll be your Professor X. All right, everybody, we've got 151 live viewers. We're talking UFC Vegas 69. Nice. And I have to take a real quick break to go ahead and shout out the sponsors for the show. Obviously, you know Pub Sports Radio. Become a member if you haven't. We're going to be doing members-only chats, members-only giveaways, things of that nature, so we can give back to you guys that support us. The lines are presented by Superbook Sports. Make sure you check them out. And then we have got Spectation Sports. We got some fights coming up on Spectation Sports that you'll want to see. They do regional MMA shows, and we are working with them. They're going to have, betting lines up for a lot of these. Definitely want to take a look at them. Trevor Peak has a fight coming up, and the reason we know about Trevor Peak is because of Spectation Sports. We were able to see this kid on the regional scene and know how good he is coming into the Contender Series. You can use this for your research on these up-and-comer type of fighters. Promo code DIEHARD if you want to go ahead and sign up. Next up, we have got Pub Sports Radio. We're doing free fights, free giveaways for the contest, and your boy just tied Boston Nick MMA as the only two-time champion here at Pub Sports Radio. That's right. I took the contest down last week, and I kept y'all from winning the free money. You got to beat me. Come get me. And Boston Nick, if you're out there listening, I'm going to be the first three-time champion. I'm calling it. I'm going to beat you to it. But anyway, folks, it's free to sign up. You pick the fighter, you pick the round, you pick the method. We will be keeping track. We'll be doing season-long stats, etc. Maybe some fun contests to go along with it, but jump in here and do that with us. The final one here, Sharp app. We've got a Discord for the Sharp app. I can give you guys a link, and I will be putting it in the description of the video down here below. You cannot afford, have as many outs as you possibly can, right? Like join as many Discords as you can, as long as you've got sharp people, sharp information. I've given away some of the free picks from the premium Discord with the Sharp app. They have been very good to us. They show you betting lines, betting splits. They've got essentially what they call the Sharp Academy, where they teach you how to be a better gambler, things of that nature. Make sure you check out the Sharp app. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with me, and we will roll right along into the next fight. Lina, the elbow queen, Länsberg, is taking on Mayra, Bueno, Silva. And you gotta love Miss Homer Simpson, the elbow queen. Like she's 40 years old. She's going to be 41, by fight time. I actually think that's true. She's supposed to be turning 41 very, very soon. And she's still doing the damn thing, Brady. She is going to come in here and she's going to get lit up in round one. But if you don't get Lina Länsberg out of there in round one, she turns the tables and she throws heavies in rounds 2 and 3 and just does not stop coming. She's one of these bygone versions of women's MMA fighters that is just kind of hanging around, and she'll still beat the brakes off of some of these young kids that just don't have the toughness to stay in there with her. She's got 48% takedown defense, 3 knockout losses if you look at her record. However, it hasn't been since Chris Cyborg that she's been knocked out. So, not the easiest person in the world to finish, even though she's showing on her record 3 knockout losses. Her opponent, Mayra Bueno, Tara, as they call her, 9-2-1, high-level submission offense, but she really prefers to strike. She's one of these fighters that likes to go out there and kickbox, use big, powerful knees. She's got good Muay Thai, underrated power, very physically aggressive, but she's another low IQ fighter here, Brady. She's another one who makes poor choices. In my opinion, if she went out there and 4 scrambles and got these fights to the ground, she taps people in 5 seconds. She's incredible on the ground, but she just doesn't use it. She wants to go out there and bang. And she'll also stand there and let you punch her in the face. And then no. She'll wave you off after you popped her, but she's not scoring back. She's another one of these fighters with a massively high ceiling, but will let a fight slip away from her. She's got a 1-inch reach advantage. And I know there's a man in this chat today that I need to shout out because, Lou, if you don't have a Yambags prop on this fight, you're doing it wrong. We have seen Mayra Bueno Silva grab the cage so much. We have seen her grab the cage over and over. And with the point deductions lately, with the draws that we have had, I've got a feeling if this fight gets extended, if she doesn't get Lina Länsberg out of there early in this fight and it ends up getting hairy, Mayra's one of these Brazilian fighters that will do whatever it takes to get the win. And that includes fence grabbing as many times as they'll let her get away with. This is your point deduction sprinkle, folks. This is the one right here. But frankly, Mayra Bueno Silva should win this fight. and she should win it by knockout, Brady. I know what I've got here for you guys is Mayra Bueno minus 390, but she's already moved up to minus 400. She's the right side. She's the rightful favorite. And as long as she doesn't screw this up, she should probably get a signature highlight reel win on Saturday. What are you doing, Brady?
Yeah, not much, man. I mean, Bueno Silva, I think she's really, really good. I think she's extremely skilled on the mat. There's one stat that scares me though, especially when we're talking laying at like minus 425, and the stat is Mara Bueno Silva's completed a massive 0 takedowns in the UFC, and she's attempted only 1. When she's getting these submissions, it's because her opponents are taking her down. Like Jillian Robertson, black belt, took her down, armbar. Mara Morella Barella took her down, armbar. We had Stephanie Egger, took her down last fight, armbar. She's not actively going out there and trying to take people down, and when she has, she was not able to get it down to the mat. So if you're laying almost minus 500 on Mara Bueno Silva, expecting her to go out there and grapple, I wouldn't, because she just doesn't do it.
Happening.
Yeah, she's going to go out there and strike with Lina Länsberg. And what's weird about Länsberg, yes, she's 50 years old, but man, she's kind of being somewhat competitive in these last couple fights. Against Carol Hosa, she dropped her, right? She also dropped Panicky Andrade, so she's having her moments, but it's really hard to pick a 41-year-old Lina Länsberg at this point. I think Mara Bueno Silva wins, but yeah, I thought the line was pretty wide here. If Mara Bueno Silva would come in here, and I know for a fact that she would grapple, then minus 400 probably could make sense, but in a fight where I feel like it's going to play out on the feet for 15 minutes, I just struggle to see how she pays off that price tag unless it is an early knockout. But like you said, Länsberg's not been knocked out in a while. This is a pass for me. I don't want to lay minus 400 on Silva, and I don't really want to bet a 41-year-old in Länsberg. So I'm gonna sit back and watch this one. Might not even watch it, to be honest. I might take the time and maybe go make some dinner during this fight. Maybe cook up some chicken, maybe some fish. I don't know if I'll be watching this one this Saturday.
Okay, that's fair enough, man. Fireball and popcorn, folks. This is a one that you can maybe avoid. I might potentially look at violence at this spot. That would be really the only way I would want to look, just because we know the type of power that the elbow queen brings to the table, and we know the finishing ability of Silva. It's just a matter of whether or not it happens. This is that fight where I could see it happening both ways. Either of these women could have success. It could be the breakout story for Mayra Bueno Silva, but it also could be like a really slog of a fight, and it could get dragged out for 15 minutes, and there could be a lot of cage pushing, and it could be a lot of staring. So yeah, another very, very questionable fight. Silva really should win by knockout, but we'll see what she does.
We shall see.
We shall see. All right, everybody. We have got 142 live viewers tonight. Thank you again for spending your Monday with us. Next up, Jim A10 Miller taking on Alexander the Great Hernandez. Miller, you're plus 190 underdog. Alex Hernandez coming in here off of a really poor performance, the minus 220 favorite. And Brady, I made an oath. I swore I would never bet Alexander Hernandez again. And then I took him by knockout in his last fight. So I went back on my word, and my mom told me, Clint, the stove is hot. Do not touch it. And I went, I just stuck my hand right there on the burner. I can't with Alexander Hernandez anymore. He's 2-4 in his last 6. Now, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Renato Moicano, those are some damn good names. Like, the guy is fighting really elite level competition. And even though Billy Q is not the most technical fighter in the world, he's not the greatest fight in the world, he's a guy like Hernandez's kryptonite. He's got that gas tank. And that's really all the story is about Alexander Hernandez. He is a good hammer, and he is a bad nail. If this man is in the driver's seat with the wrestling, you're screwed. If this man is getting off on you on the feet, you're screwed. He's got extremely heavy hands. He's explosive. He's powerful. But as soon as he doesn't see early success, if you push back and you're not 52-year-old Francisco Trinaldo who's willing to, trade leg kicks at range for 15 minutes, he crumbles. He completely falls apart when you push back on him. Now, thankfully, in this spot, he's getting the withered, Lyme diseased Jim Miller in this fight. He is coming in on short notice, so you got to wonder what kind of shape he's in at this point. It is back up at 155. You know, he had that experiment at 145 that didn't go very well. Back up at 155, you'd think maybe he's got a little bit better cardio, a little bit better explosiveness. But man, the legend Jim Miller has been showing some new wrinkles the last couple of fights. It seems like he's got the Lyme disease under control. He used to be round one Miller. Like that was the joke I made on the show every time was it's round one Miller or he dies. And now he's round two Miller. Like he has no problem extending these kids. He's now going out there and being competitive in the first round, taking it slow, and then whooping ass in the second round. Like Jim Miller knocked Nicholas Motta's head into the third row. And I really thought, and Brady, and this is where I made a lot of mistakes last year. Betting on elderly fighters was one of them. I'm going to become an ageist similar to yourself moving forward from now because it burned me so much last season. I swore Donald Cerrone had more in the tank than Jim Miller did. I was like, if this gets out of round one, Donald is going to kick the legs off of Jim Miller, and he's eventually just going to crumble because he's a bad gasser. No, it's the exact opposite. He swarmed Donald Cerrone in that second round and then choked him out. Like, I don't know what to make of Jim Miller right now. Frankly, I really don't. He's 39 years old, and he looks better than ever. Now, granted, he's facing the Ghost Pepper, Motta, a retiring Donald Cerrone. So, like, we do have to take the level of competition into grips here just a little bit. My soul says that Alex Hernandez is going to come out here and faceplant Jim Miller in the first round. But I've lost way too much money expecting that to be the result. This is another spot where, frankly, all I want to do, Brady, is look at violence. If Alex Hernandez is serious about saving his UFC job, maybe he comes out and takes Miller down and like grinds on him and turns this thing into a slog. But frankly, that cost him in his last couple fights. Trying to wrestle has kind of been the issue for him because he slows down and gasses out. And if he does that, Jim Miller could finish this kid in the second or the third round. He might actually be the one with the better gas tank here. So I see violence. I think on short notice, this is a finish spot. I think Alexander Hernandez plants Jim Miller early because he's the younger, fresher, hungrier fighter. But if he doesn't, Jim Miller is fully capable of killing this kid in the second round. So yeah, give me an under here, but I'll pick Hernandez. I refuse to bet him though.
Yeah, man, I'm sick of saying it, but this is one I'm gonna pass on. When I first saw the line, I saw Jim Miller like plus 200 against Alex Hernandez. I was kind of confused, and then I ran the tape, and I can kind of see why now. I think the level of competition is a huge talking point here. Jim Miller at 39, he's looking, like you said, better than ever, but he knocked out a debuting Eric Gonzalez in the second round. He knocked out a debuting, Nicholas Motta. And then he knocked out a retiring Donald Cerrone. So he's looked really good in those last three fights, but I think there's some context there. Whereas Hernandez is losing his last couple fights, but he's losing to Billy Quarantillo, horrible matchup, Renato Moicano, horrible matchup, and then also Thiago Moises, which that one was kind of weird. A lot of people weren't expecting, including me, Thiago Moises to go out there and outstrike Hernandez for 3 rounds, but it happened.
Yeah, that was weird.
But, I feel like this could look a lot like the which fight was it? The Pichel fight with Jim Miller or the Selecki fight with Jim Miller, where, both those guys were able to, implement their wrestling. And like you said, the cardio of Hernandez is a huge worry, especially coming here on short notice. But I feel like Jim Miller, he can be taken down, has a 47% takedown defense. And we saw it in both the Selecki and Pichel fights where, when he's taken down, he's content to kind of stay on his back for the rest of the round and threaten with submissions. So I kind of see it as a very winnable matchup for Alexander Hernandez, and I think he's taken this on short notice because he thinks it is a very winnable matchup for him as well. But to lay minus 230 on the guy, I can't get there. I would not think about getting there because the cardio scares the crap out of me. And like you said, Jim Miller, typically a round one guy. Like I remember at one point in his career, it was like 7 or 8 wins in a row came in the first round, and then now these last 3 are in the second. So he's evolving at 39 years old, and that's kind of scary. So I mean, it's a pass for me. I don't hate the violence look. I think both guys are going to have opportunities to finish throughout the entire fight. Not sure what the line is on that, but yeah, this is another one I'm probably going to stay away from. But yeah, I think Hernandez is the rightful favorite, but trusting him is a different story.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And Real Deal Prime, always wrestling rules, and he's not wrong. Like I said, if Alexander Hernandez was capable of going 15 minutes hard on the mat, I think Hernandez decision is actually very much on the table. But Brady, how can we possibly trust this kid's gas tank? We have yet to see him implement that game plan of wrestling somebody for 15 straight minutes since
OAM.
Oh boy, like I'm looking back through the record, and it wasn't even Trinaldo. I think it was OAM. Did he out wrestle OAM? That was the one that he finally did that, and it was 2018 that took place. OAM has made some serious improvements since then, and his takedown defense was god awful back then, and he may have a worse gas tank than Alexander Hernandez. Like even over in the PFL, frankly, I think a UFC level fighter could push OAM to the point that he broke. These guys that have good gas tanks, he just can't do that to. So even with the only thing is, like you mentioned, the 42% takedown defense. Jim Miller is more than willing to fall to his back and play there because he knows he's got that jiu-jitsu. And if he's gonna make if he's not going to make Alexander work to get him to the ground, if he just jumps to his back the way we've seen him do before, I think Alexander has the energy to stay on top of him and could potentially implement that game plan for 15 minutes. So another fight that's extremely sketchy, and trying to get into the head of someone like Alexander Hernandez coming in this spot where his job is on the line, frankly, I don't really want to do it. So picking Alexander, leaning towards violence, show me a number. Show me a number, because you guys know I always try to find the value. I always try to play the number. If Alexander Hernandez by decision is something stupid, I might have to sprinkle, but he really should be able to finish this version of Jim Miller. Folks, we are getting down to the last couple of fights here. Let's go ahead and talk about the next one. We've got William Knight taking on Marcin Prachnio. Now, I try to be nice, Brady. I really do. I try to be respectful, because even the fighters who come in and go 0-3 in the UFC and get booted from the department would whip my ass in a fight. So I want to be respectful. But I've said some things about Marcin Prachnio, and I refuse to back off of them. I truly believe that Marcin Prachnio is one of the worst fighters on the UFC roster. He has a bad chin. He has a bad gas tank. He's got good leg kicks. I'll give him that. He's got good hard leg kicks. But outside of that, Marcin Prachnio just does not have a lot to offer. When you attack him, he covers up and he falls back, and he looked terrible doing it. He dips his head, and he is so hittable. He is so counterable. I don't know how he survived his last couple of fights, making it to a decision. Ike Villanueva practically had him knocked out in their fight in the first round, and it wasn't until he got the leg kicks going that he was able to finally work his way back into that one. The Khalil Roundtree, I will never understand. They must have injected the steroids straight into his chin, because that should have been a round one finish. But I'm having a real hard time with Will Knight here. Guys, I like Will Knight. I've lost money on Will Knight because I keep expecting him to be better, and it's just not happening. I've DM'd the guy a couple of times. He seems like a really great person. He's got a true underdog story. I love Will Knight as a fan. I support him as a person. But I've got serious concerns, Brady, about what this guy is doing, because all he does is work out. And I mean, all he does is work out. Now, obviously, posting things on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, it's not real life. Maybe he does have daily MMA sessions, but the ratio is 10-1 as far as videoing himself lifting versus videoing himself on the pads. And he's got tall man defense. He's the shortest person in history to have tall man defense. He just leans back and is very, very hittable. Devin Clark knocked him out with a big shot in the third round, and that's a cardinal sin for me, Brady. Devin Clark is my bottom bar that you do not lose to Devin Clark if you're going to have a future in the UFC. And he got knocked out by Devin Clark. I know there were some circumstances in that fight. I know he couldn't make weight because of the short notice, and he came in. They moved it to heavyweight for God knows what reason. There's a lot going on for that fight. It was a weird result, but you just don't lose that way to Devin Clark, frankly, for me to be able to trust you with my money. If Will Knight has made any kind of improvements whatsoever, I think he can chin Marcin Prachnio. He should knock him out. He really should. But Marcin Prachnio, believe it or not, is the better MMA fighter, folks. He can stay on the outside. He can attack with those leg kicks, and Will Knight doesn't check leg kicks. if Marcin stays away from him and just throws the kicks at range, I think Will Knight's going to have a really hard time getting to him. And he throws like double spinning heel kicks and stuff instead of like closing the distance and going for the grappling. Frankly, if Will Knight comes out like a bull in a china shop and rushes Marcin Prachnio, this fight is over in 20 seconds. He can rip this guy to the ground, pound his face in, clip him with a big shot coming in. But if he does what he's done in every single one of his other fights, which is bounce on his feet, throw a spinning heel kick, back up, like if he plays that game, Marcin Prachnio is just going to take his front leg off. I think violence makes some sense in this fight. Will Knight round 1 by knockout makes some sense in this fight, but I wouldn't rule out a Marcin Prachnio leg kick TKO in this spot either, folks. Like, I hate to say it, and I'm heart and soul rooting for Will Knight because he's such a nice guy. But believe it or not, I think Marcin is live in this spot. We do have a straight up pick 'em. And again, lines are subject to change, people. As the money comes in, they move. When I made the graphics, Prachnio was the slight favorite. So somebody did bite on Will Knight plus 100, and I think that makes sense. Will Knight knockout round 1 is going to be my prediction. But dear God, if it gets out of round 1, if he can't chin Marcin Prachnio and early, I fully expect Marcin Prachnio to work his way back into this fight and probably finish Will in the second or the third.
Yeah, I've passed on a lot of fights thus far, and I do have a bet here. I like the under quite a bit. I think both guys are alive for a finish. Like you mentioned, Prachnio's been knocked out 4 times, all 4 of those being in the first round. William Knight has a lot of power. Both guys actually have a lot of power, a lot of finishing ability. Both guys not very defensively sound at all. William Knight is sporting a 32% striking defense, which that is the same striking defense as Jordan Wright, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, which is bad. I mean, that's a bad thing a bad stat to carry. So yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up though, Brady. I'm glad you let us know that is a bad striking stat because I didn't know.
I mean, if you have any stats the same as Jordan Wright, it's not good. But anyway, Prachnio very hittable himself. And man, what scares me is Devin Clark finishes nobody. Devin Clark got his very first finish win against William Knight. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind Prachnio can knock this guy out, but there's also no doubt in my mind that Knight can knock this dude out. So just give me the under. You know, I don't want to pick a side. I don't trust either of these guys, but I do trust them to throw down. I don't trust their chins. I don't trust their strike and defense. So I like violence here. In terms of a pick, I'm going the same way. I'm going William Knight. And William Knight probably early. I also think he could potentially mix in the wrestling as well. We saw Philipe Lins go out there and try to take down Prachnio and have success doing so. And with Philipe Lins, mixing in the wrestling, we saw Prachnio like death gassed, like 6 minutes in. This dude was so tired. His mouth was wide open. So I wouldn't mind seeing William Knight implement some wrestling here. But yeah, I think Prachnio is the better technical striker. I think he has a lot more tools on the feet, but William Knight's one big shot away from knocking this guy out and giving him his 5th knockout loss in the very first round. So as far as a pick, because you got to make a pick, I'm going with Knight. But in terms of a bet, I think violence is the way to go here. Don't trust the side, just trust the violence on this one.
I think that's fair. I absolutely think that's fair, and I completely agree. I mean, even at a 1.5 mark, I think that's probably still the move. The one time that we really saw Will Knight get after it, and this is where, you kind of got to read between the lines here a little bit, but Will Knight was getting all kinds of shit talked on him just before his fight with Fabio Cherant, after the Da Un Jung thing, and he came out angry, Brady. This guy is very emotional, and I don't mind that in a fighter if you use it the right way. And he's got a chip on his shoulder coming into this one. Like, if you follow him on Instagram, which I do, he makes a whole bunch of posts. He is just like fired up coming into this fight. Good. And he is ready to show the world that he belongs in the UFC after hearing some of the comments and things like that people have to say, especially against a guy with chin issues like Prachnio. That's the kind of thing I want to get behind. I believe him. So I do think Knight by knockout. I do think he comes out with a chip on his shoulder and has a slightly more aggressive style than we're used to him seeing. And whether that goes for or against him, I think it gives us an under. So I'm right there with you. I think we get a finish here in this fight.
Love it.
Let's go. Come on, Willie Knight. I want to see you do well. Man, I wish he'd call up ATT or some shit, man. Like, I know he's training. He's training out of an LA Fitness and then goes in some guy's backyard and does his striking work. Like, I wish he would go to Elevation Fight Team, or something. Like, I think he's got such raw power that, like, if someone could harness it and give him some technique to go with it, he could actually be something.
Yeah.
I want him to be more than just a freak show fighter a couple times a year in the UFC. Anyway, c'est la vie, folks. Believe it or not, this year co-main event.
I think we missed one, Clint. I think we got Pogues Parisian.
Oh, we did miss one. This is not your co-main event. I apologize.
I mean, we could skip it if you want.
We could skip it. We very well could skip this fight, and it wouldn't even be a big deal. Josh Parisian taking on Jamall Pogues. Dear God. So, Pogues from Dana White's Contender Series. He's a 2-time competitor on Dana White's Contender Series. And Brady, frankly, maybe the most fraudulent competitor ever on Dana White's Contender Series. So first off, the people that go on Contender more than once, they just don't do well. They're just not that good. Like, if it takes you more than one try and they didn't give you the contract, on the first time, probably not getting it. If you go back the second time and they're like, all right, fine, we need bodies that'll come in and fight for $5K, for the 2-2 price tag. Fine, we'll sign you. Dude, his second guy that he fought on Dana White's Contender Series, they fought at heavyweight. He's a natural 205er. And the guy he fought that night is a 170 pounder. Like, wrap your brain around that. This actually happened. We've got a 265 pound fight between a guy who's just not cutting down to 205 anymore. So he's fighting at heavyweight. And his opponent, even more so, is not a 185er, a 170 pounder who is fighting up at heavyweight. He's not a heavyweight. Jamall Pogues in no world is a heavyweight. Now, Josh Parisian, as much as, again, another guy who's very, very likable, is not a UFC caliber heavyweight. He's got okay volume. He's not fast. He's got brutal, vicious ground and pound, and he's a BJJ black belt, but he has zero wrestling to go with it, Brady. None whatsoever. So he's got opportunities where he can finish. Otherwise, he's in really close, sloppy, classic heavyweight fights where he needs to outvolume his opponents a little bit more, but he never has a speed advantage. Jamall Pogues has a really good jab. That's about all I can say about him. He's got decent wrestling. I don't know if that's going to hold up well at 265. That's my only thing. Like, at 205, maybe he can grind out some of the lower level wrestlers. Josh Parisian has awful takedown defense. So maybe this man can take down Josh Parisian and lay on top of him. Maybe. But frankly, I think Josh Parisian is the much naturally bigger man. And I listened to his interview. Shout out my guy, James Lynch, always doing the interviews with these fighters and stuff. He knows that his wrestling is the problem. And frankly, that's been a focus for him for the last camp or so that he did. Apparently, he brought in some, high caliber grapplers that are trying to work with him on his takedown defense. So at least he's making an effort to improve in that area. Dear God, Brady, what do we even do here? No way in hell am I laying with Jamall Pogues. And folks, this is another Dana White's Contender Series fade spot, because Pogues should never be coming in here as a minus 200 favorite, where he's essentially still fighting up an entire weight class. I know Josh Parisian's nothing to write home about. I know he's not good, but geez, like, it's dog or pass for me, Brady. I just can't do it. And frankly, you shouldn't do it at all. Like, this is probably another fight that you just should not have your money on, and I'm not sure why it's happening in the first place.
Yeah, this card, man, come on. Like, this is the main card of a UFC card. Like, I mean, that's wild to me. Like, Josh Parisian, Jamall Pogues is on the main card. It just goes to show you how stacked this fight night card is. So I'm looking
Mike
forward to it. What is that?
Nailed it. This card is embarrassing.
Yes.
Frankly, guys, we are the diehards of MMA. No pun intended for the show name or anything. Like, Brady does shows every single week with the boys at the MMA Engine. We break these fights down forward, backwards, and sideways for your entertainment week in and week out. And all of us are looking at this card going, like, this doesn't make sense. They took every single person that they had one final contracted fight with, and they threw them together on one card. Like, this, I swear, this is Hunger Games is what this fight is, Brady. They are taking everybody that they're like, we don't want any of you. And they're like putting them all on the same card together to see if, who's going to win and who's going to go home, who's going to live and die on Saturday. There's like 2 real fights on this entire stupid card.
Yeah, it's bad, man. Yeah, I'm not betting on this fight. I have no interest in betting on this fight. There's nothing sticking out. I'm not there. I would never in a million years bet this fight. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of concerns. From Pogues. I mean, he's a light heavyweight fighting up in heavyweight, and the concern I have, like this price tag, like if Jamall Pogues comes out here and wrestles, I think he could look minus 240, potentially minus 225. But what concerns me, Clint, is he on the Contender Series, his second go around, he came up to heavyweight and he attempted 0 takedowns, which surprised me a little bit because I remember watching tape on this guy, and he has really good wrestling and he's taking these guys down. But if he comes in here and does not try to take down Josh Parisian, this is going to look like a pick'em. If he comes in here and wrestles, yeah, I think the path to victory is there, and I think that's why money's pouring in on this guy. It shouldn't be, but money's pouring in on this guy. He's now minus 240 now, so looks like people are playing some Pogues. But yeah, I mean, the thing that scares me for Parisian is the Dontel Mays fight. There's no defending that Dontel Mays fight. Dontel Mays, Josh Parisian made Dontel Mays look like Curtis Blades in that fight. Dontel really Mays took him down 6 times, dominated him. He had no answer, and then Dontel Mays got that TKO win in the 3rd round. If Dontel Mays is taking you down 6 times, I think Pogues can take him down, but yeah, he's a light heavyweight. So is that wrestling? Is that strength? Is that going to translate against a guy in Parisian who, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he weighs in like 265. Like, the dude's a big heavyweight. So I see why Pogues is the favorite. I see what people are seeing in terms of the path to victory, but you better hope he goes out there and wrestle, because if he doesn't, it's going to look like a pick'em at best. So I mean, it's a pass though. I'm not betting this fight.
Like I said, Brady, if I'm doing anything here, I'm plugging my nose and I'm hoping Parisian has worked out how to defend a single leg, because, and I mean, you know what, frankly, Brady, this kid went at 205 and laid on top of a man and was so boring they didn't give him a UFC contract the last time out. Even if he does get a takedown on Josh Parisian, this fight starts on the feet in round 2. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not convinced this kid is such a stud wrestler that he can chain takedowns for 15 minutes. And apparently he's got really bad fight IQ. When the UFC brought him back and said, hey, impress us, baby, show us what you got. We're going to give you a 170 pounder, knock his ass out, and we'll give you a contract. He jabbed him in the face for 15 minutes. Like, this kid has no killer instinct. He has no fight IQ. Like, this is exactly the type of fighter you want to fade when you get a plus money opportunity. It may be the dirtiest, stinkiest, mangiest dog who's got worms, but it's Parisian for me, folks. Like, I don't think I can get around how bad this kid is. Unless we watched, we watched the weigh-ins. If he doesn't have a spare tire on, if he comes in and Pogues is looking like he took his vitamins leading up to this fight, okay, maybe we back off and we go, he's taking this shit seriously. But if we get 265-pound Pogues that looks like, Parker Porter's favorite, cousin, this 205er masquerading at heavyweight, no chance we're laying a price tag on that.
No.
All right. And you know what? Swiss in the chat saying, Clint, shout out your parents, man. I feel like they spent a lot of money on your dental health. And you know what, Swiss? They did. My parents are the absolute best. I've got this shiny ass clean grill for you guys because they ponied up. I played football in high school, and I played with this guy named John. He had full braces during football season and was spitting blood at practice every single day. And he had to peel his lips off of his braces because you'd make contact and get hit and smash him into the braces and stuff. And my parents ponied up for the Invisalign when it was still very unknown at that point in time, just so I didn't have to deal with that. And it worked like a charm. I'm still trying to get that Invisalign sponsorship, by the way. So, we'll work on that. But shout out to mom and dad. Actually, you know what, guys? Real quick, sidebar. Gonna get real on you for 2 seconds here. I try to keep the show light. I try to keep it fun. Jokes, make you laugh. My mom is in the emergency room right now. Or not the emergency room. She's in the hospital. So if any of you, if you pray, if you do good vibes, whatever you've got, if you could send them our way. She's doing better, thankfully. She's been in there for 2 days, though, and it's one of those things where they're monitoring her. She's not out of the woods yet. It looks like she is headed the right direction. But like I said, any thoughts and prayers, any vibes, anything you got for me, if you could send them my mom's way, I'd appreciate it, because I've been praying my ass off for a couple of days for her. Let's get to the main event of the evening. And Brady, I tried to tee it up last time and totally fucked it up. I can't believe this is our co-main event. Like, holy crap. Who is the A side? Like, how is this ever a main event in the UFC? Jordan Wright is one of the nicest guys I've ever seen. I love his interviews with James Lynch. He seems like a real sweetheart. But you know the UFC is just using him as cannon fodder for these people's records. And Zach is the runner-up for the Ultimate Fighter. He's a 205er who was competing up at heavyweight and got blasted by Usman. I bet him that night. You know, I thought he was the better fighter than Usman. Looked like he was the better fighter than Usman, and then got clipped by a dude up a weight class with massive power. Should have seen it coming. You know, of course, they wanted the other Usman to go ahead and get a win. I should have played the narrative on that one. But frankly, this fight is taking place at 205. You've got a guy who's moving up to 205 versus a guy who's moving down to 205. That size and power difference really is a big question for me here, because I know our guy, Jordan Wright, is big. He is really physically strong. He is explosive at 185. I don't know if that's going to translate well at 205 against a guy who's used to pushing around heavyweights. And it's maybe one of his best aspects is how hard he hits and how strong he can be. So I worry about the maybe one advantage that Jordan Wright had going out the damn window here against Zach. But Zach is only 5-1. Jordan Wright's got mountains of experience more than he does, even though his fights last a grand total of about, 62 seconds every time he steps in the cage. Jordan Wright's been talking big game about working with Vladimir Matyushenko. Now, I know most of you in the chat are probably too young to know Vladimir Matyushenko, but the dude was a baller back in his day. Very strong wrestler. One of the dudes on John Jones's resume to help get him going. And he's one of the main coaches for Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright's been talking a lot about wrestling, Brady. I think he's finally realized that chin ain't it. And in his last fight against Dusko, he really went hard for the wrestling and gassed out. He's been talking about moving up to 205 pounds for a long time. He said that the weight cuts have just been too much for him down at 185. I mean, if Jordan Wright has more of a gas tank at 205 and he comes out here diving on legs, I could see him potentially finding a path to extend this one. But Zach almost reminds me of Chris Curtis, man. Like, he's patient. He keeps the range. He keeps the distance. He attacks the bodies. He's got big, big hooks. I really like the method of Zach Pauga, the way he attacks his opponents, the way he strikes, the way he lulls people in. I like it, and that's why I bet him against Usman. I think it's just a matter of time before he finds the button on Jordan Wright. Would love to see Jordan Wright get his hand raised. Really would. But frankly, I don't think he can keep up a 15-minute wrestling match against Zach. I think he'll slowly start to slow down, gas out, get tired. And when he eats a couple of shots, Zach hits hard. I'm going to say Zach Pauga by round 2 knockout. What you doing, Brady?
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. I'm actually kind of disappointed. I didn't hear the Jordan Wright interview yet, but I'm disappointed that he's talking about wrestling, because I think that's probably the worst thing he could do in this matchup. Like, Zach Pauga, his main training partner is Curtis Blades. Like, he's training with big Blades every single day. So good.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, every single day is with Curtis Blades on the mat. I mean, so good luck, middleweight Jordan Wright, trying to take down Zach Pauga. Man, Jordan Wright's path to victory is go out there like a wild man, like a madman. Go out there, try to take this guy's head off in the first 60 seconds. If you do it, you do it. If you don't, you gas out and you get finished. That's Jordan Wright's game. He's not a wrestler. He can't do it for 15 minutes. He tried to do it against Dusko. He gassed out. He tried to do it against Marc-Andre Barriault, guillotined. And if he tries to do it against Zach Pauga, I mean, Curtis Blades is a much better wrestler than Jordan Wright, right? So
much more capable.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wright's actually pretty live to go in there and finish Pauga early, but he has about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to do so. Pauga got clipped with the 12th punch that Muhammad Usman landed out of nowhere. It looked like it barely landed. It was like a perfectly placed shot on the chin of Pauga that Usman landed. And yeah, Wright, he does one thing really well. He's super dangerous. So a prop that I'll be taking a look at, I always take a look at, is Jordan Wright KO 1. But if he's talking about like wrestling and stuff, like, good luck. I mean, good luck trying to take down Zach Pauga for 15 minutes. You don't have the gas tank, and I'm sure he's well prepared for that. So, yeah, I can't bet. Usually, you want to bet an under in a Jordan Wright fight, but Zach Pauga is not much of a finisher, but I don't think that matters. I think he still finishes right. He only has a 20% knockout rate. He's only finished one fight, but like you said, it's Jordan Wright. The under 1.5 is juiced. Like I don't want to lay minus 150 on the under 1.5. So I think it's something I might want to pass on because I could see like a Pauga, like a late second, like an early third. I don't think it goes the distance, so it's going to be a pass for me. I'll root for my guy Beverly Hills Ninja, but probably not a fight I'll get to from a betting perspective.
I mean, Brady, if anything, this is your hold your nose and go over spot. You know, I did that with Modestas Pekaukas and Tyson Pedro this past week, and that worked out pretty damn well. I got a little greedy doing the split decision prop instead of just taking the decision plus 650, and that stings just a little bit. But this is the kind of spot where I'm like, if you're giving me plus money on an over 1.5 because we know how Wright usually fights, but he's coming out here with his singlet on, like plus the plus money might get me. We might turn the script on its head for this one because Zach is not a guy that comes forward recklessly and aggressively. He's very patient. We could see a very slow round one. Jordan Wright is going to know that this is it. Back against the wall. He's got to win this fight. His job is on the line here, and he wants to wrestle so he doesn't get chinned again. And then you've got an opponent who's going to backpedal, who's going to mind the range, who's going to jab, who's a bit low volume. We could easily see round two in this fight, in my opinion.
Oh, especially if Wright wrestles, 100%.
Yeah. My only concern is if Zach is just too beefy and Wright like gets shucked off the first takedown and
yes,
there's like one bank. It's like it could be over.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, everybody. We won't bore you too much more with the Jordan Wright fight because me and Brady could talk for a full hour on Jordan Wright, even though we really shouldn't. Do us a favor, one last time, smash the like button here for us, and we'll talk about the main event for you. Short notice, Jessica Andrade swooping in like a damn superhero to save UFC Vegas 69. Nice. And she's taking on Erin Blanchfield, who is your plus 155 underdog. There's been so much movement already on this card. I'm just going to go ahead and check that line for you again. Okay, this one has not moved. You've got a weird set of narratives going into this fight here, Brady. We're all ready for like the next title challenger. You've got, the two women who should be, 1 and 2 for the contender spot. And then we lose Taila Santos. I was so excited to see Taila Santos versus Erin Blanchfield. It was a real questions answered type of matchup, in my opinion. A grappler's delight. Two fighters who are more grappler than they are striker going at it. So it kind of evened out. I want to see who's stronger. I want to see who's more technical. And now we've got someone who comes in and throws fastballs instead. And frankly, I think this might be just a little too much, a little too soon for Erin Blanchfield. I don't like the matchup for her. She is an incredible grappler. She's an amazing talent. She's a very hot prospect, but folks, she's only 23 years old. I've talked about this a couple times with a couple other fighters the last few weeks. These young fighters, sometimes they get pushed just a little too hard, a little too soon. And I think you can put Erin Blanchfield up against any grappler you want to in the division. And I'll watch that fight. That's an appropriate step. But going from Meatball Molly to Jessica Andrade is a massive leap. It is a big issue, in my opinion, because Jessica Andrade is really solid when it comes to the wrestling. Now, she got mauled by Valentina Shevchenko, but that was also like prime 2021 Valentina Shevchenko. And frankly, I think that Jessica Andrade was expecting a striking match when she came into that fight. I got a hard time believing that she prepped for very much grappling, if any at all, because all of us believed that Andrade had the ground advantage in that fight, and maybe it was going to be Valentina that would out finesse her on the feet. Valentina made a statement going out there and putting her on her back, I think 7 times in that fight. So that's the only reason that Andrade's takedown defense rating is 77% is because the one damn Valentina Shevchenko fight. If not for that fight, she's doing shit like she does to Rose Namajunas, picking people up, slamming them to the ground, being in dominant position. And she legitimately can throw fastballs, 200 significant strikes, 25 straight minutes without gassing out. She's a freak of nature. Now, she's going to be undersized. Erin Blanchfield is going to have, I believe, a 3-inch height advantage here in this fight. and she's going to have a decent reach advantage as well. The problem is she doesn't know how to use those, Brady. She's a phenomenal grappler. The striking has not caught up yet. She's a little slow. She's got kind of a lazy jab. And if she goes out there and she uses those tools, Meatball Molly clipped her with a couple of big shots. And if Andrade has that same opportunity, I think she's going to hurt her. So I can't, as much as I want to see Erin Blanchfield succeed, and I'm still calling her as a title challenger and a potential title holder in the UFC, I don't think this is it. I think this is too much too soon for her. And I think Jessica Andrade is going to put a beating on her, and she's probably going to TKO her with a body shot. I think she goes back to the body. I think she keeps her hips back. She defends the takedowns and uses that speed advantage in the movement and just rips the body of Erin Blanchfield. And I think it's going to add up and eventually get to the point where it's too much. I think Jessica Andrade, I will say round 3 TKO. What are you doing, Brady?
Completely disagree. I'm
going
with round 2.
Oh, I was like, boxing gloves, put them on. Let's go for the main event.
No, I'm actually kind of upset, man. Like, I wanted to see the Santos Blanchfield fight because I thought we were going to learn a lot about Blanchfield. Because I mean, beating Molly McCann, it tells me nothing. Beating JJ Aldrich and struggling against JJ Aldrich in that fight, it just tells me nothing. And speaking of that Aldrich fight, I mean, it's a bad look. I mean, she went out there, she was 0 for 4 on takedowns against JJ Aldrich. Aldrich took her down twice, and she was able to eventually find the sub. That's great, but she was like minus 400, 500 in that fight. And like you said, like Jessica Andrade, when she's losing nowadays, it's to Valentina Shevchenko, champion. It's against Rose Namajunas, former champion. Zhang Wei Li, champion. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, former champion. Like, when she's losing to champions, right? And I think Blanchfield has potential to be champion one day, but she's only 23 years old. She still has a lot of room to grow, a lot of room for improvement. And I think one day she can absolutely be champion. I think she has the skill set to do so. I think she's awesome, but I'm with you. I think it's a little bit too soon here for Erin Blanchfield. And I've been going through Andrade's record, and like the last time, well, really the only time in the last like 7-8 years as somebody dominated Andrade on the mat, it was Valentina. Valentina was able to go out there, take her down 7 times and just completely destroy her. And I just struggle to see Erin Blanchfield on the same level as Valentina at this point. Maybe a couple years down the road, maybe Blanchfield can go out there and maybe look like Valentina did against Andrade, but right now, I have to see it first. Because like I said, beating Molly McCann tells me nothing. Beating JJ Aldrich tells me nothing. Beating Sarah Alpar tells me nothing. And Maverick win, I actually like that win, but it still doesn't tell me much. That's why I wanted to see Blanchfield take a step up and fight like a Tyler Santos. Fight, somebody that's not Molly McCann, but she's taken a step up in fighting one of the best fighters in the division, one of the most dangerous fighters in the division in Jessica Andrade. I think we're going to know in the first minute, Clint, who's going to win this fight. If Blanchfield's able to take down Andrade easily and get on top, Blanchfield probably wins. If Blanchfield is not able to take down Andrade early, it's going to be bad. It is going to be a very, very bad time for Erin Blanchfield. On the feet, it's night and day. Andrade, a ton of power, a ton of volume. Blanchfield, her striking is improving, but she's not ready yet to go out there and strike with Jessica Andrade. If Blanchfield does not get this fight down to the mat, she's getting knocked out bad. But if she proves me wrong and she goes out there and looks like Valentina against Andrade and is able to take her down, I'll be wrong, but I'm just not convinced that's going to happen come Saturday. I think it's a little bit too soon. So I like Andrade. She's coming in on short notice, but I think she'll be fine. I mean, her cardio has always been really good, especially as of late, like the last couple of years. I think she'll be good. Missed the line a little bit. She opened up around minus 150, minus 175, minus 180 now. Probably going to play like the Andrade inside the distance. I don't mind violence either way, though. Like if Blanchfield's able to implement her game plan, I think she could finish Andrade. And if Andrade is able to implement her game plan, which is going to be keeping this on the feet, I think Andrade can absolutely finish Blanchfield. So I like violence. I like Andrade inside the distance. And to improve that minus 175 price tag of Andrade, I'll be looking at like the inside the distance. I'm hoping maybe around like minus 150, minus 160. I think she finishes Blanchfield. And you said third round. I think second, but we're on the same page there with the finish.
Absolutely. Right there with you, man. I do want to shout out Pink Floyd right here real quick. He said Val finished Jess in Erin's favorite move, the crucifix. Erin is a better wrestler than Val. Large dog odds, easy bet. And I completely understand that angle. I really do. I was going to mention the crucifix, and that's That's a valid point. You know, she did get crucifixed by Val, and we saw what happens when Erin Blanchfield gets to the crucifix. But frankly, I've got a hard time believing that that hasn't been something on Jessica Andrade's mind for the last couple of years. You know, maybe she's a champion caliber fighter, folks. You know, this isn't somebody who's kind of had brief shiny moments and lost her title fight, and that's all that's happened. No, like, she's been in multiple title fights. She's had that gold wrapped around her waist, and she's not old either. Andrade is only 31 years old. So she is still very much capable of improving and tweaking her game and things of that nature. Like, I get it. It all comes down to the physicality. If Blanchfield is muscly enough to get Andrade down, I think she dominates this fight. Yes. And like Brady said, if she can't get it in the first minute, I think we're going to know, and we're going to know in a hurry. And then Andrade just beats her to a pulp until she falls over for the rest of the fight. So maybe wait and take a shot live.
Yeah.
See how that first takedown goes. Jump in as soon as Andrade as soon as her butt hits the ground. Jump in on a live bet if you like the Blanchfield side of things. But if Andrade defends that first takedown and stands up, then you know to back up the dump truck, because I don't think it's going to get any better from that point. We'll see. I'm on the Andrade side. You know, Brady, with how sketchy this card is, I have not locked in a bet yet. I do think I'll probably take a couple violence positions this week, but frankly, I'm going to keep this card very, very tight. Now, I know I said that last week, and I ended up having like 8 bets on it, but this week is such hot garbage, I swear to you. Like, if anything, I'm going to keep it to where I'm taking like the long shot stabs, because this is such a stupid card that if I'm taking like 8 and 10 to 1 prop shots for a quarter unit sprinkle, I might have more than I should worth of those, because this is the kind of card where that kind of crazy shit comes home.
Yeah. Tread lightly on this card, I think. I'm not going to have a ton of action.
Agreed. Brady, it's been too long, my guy. Thank you so much for breaking down this fight card with me. When we booked it, I thought it was a little bit more exciting than it ended up being on paper. So sorry about that, but I hope it was a fun show for everybody watching. You guys have your show later on this evening, so I will give you the floor, my guy. Let the people know where they can support you, what you've got going on. And again, just want to say thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, Clint. Card of the year. Wouldn't want to be on any other card. I mean, it was fun talking about it, though. I always like talking fights, no matter what. But yeah, Twitter, DFS_numbers. Me and Weezy are actually going live at 9:15 Eastern in 58 minutes here on Pub Sports Radio. So make sure you guys stick around. I get to break this card down all over again for 2 hours. I can't wait. And then me and Weezy also going live on the MMA Engine tomorrow for Probability, probably around 5:15 Eastern time. And of course, I go live on Friday on my channel, DFS by the Numbers, and then Saturday for Best Bet 1 hour prior to the prelims. This week, it'll be 2 hours prior to the prelims. But yeah, Clint, thanks for having me on. Always a great time. Always love talking fights. Sketchy card, but you know, a card's a card. A card is better than no card, I always like to say.
And we don't even have football anymore, Brady. Like, if football season's over, we need this kind of a sketchy ass card just to get me through the damn weekend. Thank you again for coming on, my guy. I love you guys and everything you're doing over there at the MMA Engine. Folks, that is UFC Vegas 69. Nice. Thank you all so much for joining me here on the Die Hard MMA podcast to break it all down. I hope you go out there and kick some serious ass this week. The goal for 2023 is to stay focused, folks. Last year, I lost my focus and I dropped 70 units. I had the worst record imaginable. We've started up plus 14 units in 2023, and the idea is to keep it dialed the fuck in. So what we're going to do is we're not going to lose our minds on a card like this week. If I find a good spot, you know, I'll tweet it out. My action will all be posted online, free as ever, always on Twitter, on Instagram. Give me a follow over there if you want to actually tail the action. Otherwise, we hope we provided you some information, maybe some tidbits you didn't know to help you make a more intelligent gambling decision this weekend. I'll be back for the total takedown on Thursday, the undefeated post-weigh-in show on Friday, and keep it locked right here on Pub Sports Radio, because we are covering every single sport you could possibly want action on. And my guy Connor Mack was in the chat a little bit earlier. Make sure you check out him and our guy Ian Cameron. They do a banging golf show every single and Gogster actually here at Pub Sports Radio. They all go over the golf stuff, and they do college basketball, and they just smash it. So if you guys want to tail some people in some sports you don't care as much about like I do, go check out their shows that are here on the pod on the channel. Thank you, Mushroom. Appreciate you. You're an absolute gentleman. Smash the like button on the way out, guys. I don't have much else for you. I'll be honest. With everything going on with the mom and stuff, it's been a real draining weekend for me, plus the Super Bowl and shit. So I am wiped. I'm going to go get some damn food and kick my feet up. I'm going to relax. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you online. Let's roll.